Hello, everybody. Apologies for a slight delay there. We had a little bit of a tech hitch there. Of course, you can't do one of these events without at least one tech hitch. But so apologies if you've been sat there thinking, what on earth's going on? Where is everybody? Richard Beynon will be with us in just a moment. It gives a huge pleasure to introduce Richard once again. He's supported our conferences for many years, both face-to-face and online. So despite being a bit of a veteran of the system, like myself, still can be tripped up every now and then by the odd gremlin. So apologies everybody for a slight delay, and thank you for bearing with us. I will now hand you over to Richard, who hopefully has at least a plan B and C up his sleeve, and I'll leave you in his capable hands. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. Can you hear me? You can. Okay, grand. Hi, folks. Apologies, as Mark said, for the slowness of my arrival. We had some problems getting me onto the screen and allowing me to share my slides with you, which I'm still having trouble doing, actually.
From there, Richard, or would you like me to share from this end?
Hang on just one sec. I don't know if you can see that, can you?
We can't see it yet. Bottom of your screen on your control panel next to the cam on, mic on buttons, you should see on the right a share button. Just on the Remo tab.
Yeah, I've got that, but it's not bringing up. It's not bringing up the window that I've got open with the slides in it.
So is that window minimized at the moment?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so if you just open that window and then try the share button again, you should be able to see it.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lucy.
Oh.
Okay, gang, I hope you can see that.
That looks, see that perfectly.
Yay, okay. And I don't know if you can still see me, can you? You can, I think, can't you?
We can. We can.
Okay, all right. So I'll try not to do anything rude or obnoxious while the slides are showing. I must remember that you can see me. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here again. I think this is my 4th or 5th year at this event, and it's a great event. I think these sorts of things are superb events because they bring people together. And I'm a great advocate of people talking about their work. I've been inspecting for 450 years in the FE sector and working in the FE sector. And to me, it's the hallmark of quality. Wherever I go in outstanding providers, those providers are always providers that talk to other providers a lot, and their staff talk to other staff a lot, and their leaders talk to other leaders a lot. If you want to be really good at what you do, you share stuff and you pinch stuff and you look over the fence and see what the neighbors are doing. And that's exactly what this kind of event is about. It's about sharing knowledge and skills and drawing out best practice. So I'm hugely pleased to be here. In case you don't know me, some of you might have done if you've been to these events before, I'm Richard Beynon. I'm a senior HMI in Ofsted with responsibility for further education and skills policy. So I work in the FES, Further Education and Skills Policy team, and we're responsible for what you find us doing in further education and skills. Okay, I've got some slides for you. I was asked to aim this session broadly around the ideas of governance, but to give an update generally on the situation in further education and skills. I'll try and do that. So this is what I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to look at some what I call major policy drivers. These are the things that are shaping and driving activity in the further education and skills sector, and indeed in our Ofsted work. Just a quick look quickly at some current inspection activity, which flows from those policy drivers. Then a glance at the future, what's bubbling up, what's on the plate, as it were, and coming to the front of the plate.
Sorry to interrupt, Richard. Your slides
Yeah.
aren't changing yet. Have you switched to the next slide?
Yeah, I have.
We can see your mouse moving on the screen. If you just go to the left and click on 2, we can't see the.
I've moved forward a slide now.
Okay. If you just, sorry about this, Richard. If you just stop sharing and then reshare again, would that be okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So why that hasn't shared properly.
And reshare. Can you see that?
Yes, we can. If you just try switching to the next one, is that? Oh, that's not. So when you're sharing screen, are you sharing window or entire
I've got it on slideshow mode, so it's occupying the whole screen.
Yeah. So if you just, sorry, go back. If you stop sharing again, and then instead of you've got 2 screens, right?
No, only one.
No, just one. Okay. But the slideshow is taking up the whole.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So if you, instead of selecting window, you're able to select entire screen when you share, and just bring up the presentation. So once you you should have the option to go for
entire
window,
screen or window.
Yeah. So if you go for entire screen.
Okay.
Then just bring up the presentation.
It's grayed out. It won't allow me to do that.
Okay. I think maybe the best thing for me to do is for me to share the presentation. Is that okay, Richard?
Yeah, that's fine if you can do it. If you could help me out, help me out. Sorry about this, folks.
Bit of a delay, so if you just let me know when you want to change slide, it does take a little bit of time.
Oh, hang on a sec. It's just appeared now as possible to share the screen. Am I showing now?
Oh, okay. I'll stop sharing mine. Perfect.
Are we on slide 2 now?
Sorry.
I can't see what you're seeing. That's
we are on slide 2. Yes, we're on slide 2.
Okay. Folks,
well
I'm dreadfully sorry about this. We will get to the end of this. I'm determined. All right, folks, you heard me blather on about what I do. This slide gives you some of the direction of today's session. So a look at some of the major policy drivers leading into a review of what we're doing at the moment in terms of inspection and what that means for you. A little look at the future, and then a chance for some Q&A if we've got any time left after this. I hope that will sort us out and give you what you need or want, or that's interesting for you. Okay, have we gone ahead to the next slide, Lucy? I'm assuming we have. Okay. Some major policy drivers. 3 things really coming out of government and the Department for Education across the last few years. The first one of those was the what is known as the DFE White Paper. The FE White Paper, full title being Skills for Jobs, Lifelong Learning and for Opportunity and Growth. That was the start of January 21. Treasury Spending Review, November 21. And then into last year, the Skills and Post-16 Education Act of 2022. The DFE white paper, the top one, broadly set the ground for what became the Skills and Post-16 Education Act. It set out many of the ambitions of government for the sector, and it kind of it was a manifesto really for what the government and the Department for Education, speaking on behalf of the government, wanted for FE and wanted for the direction of FE in the foreseeable future. The Treasury Spending Review in the middle there really involves Ofsted and set spending for Ofsted and therefore Ofsted direction during the next few years, the next sort of 3 to 5 years. The Skills and Post-16 Education Act that received royal assent towards the end of last year, a significant moment really. It provides, as I say on the slide, a significant and concentrated focus on skills in FE. It's no mistake that, you know, the word skills comes up right at the front of the name of the Act. Skills, skills, skills. That's the word you hear so often in the Department for Education. It's the word that you hear so often in government, and it's the word that is now echoing around the sector as a result. I think the FE sector is always focused on skills. It's what we do. It's what you and your colleagues and all of the teachers and all the leaders out there on this conference and in other colleges and areas of the country focus on. I think it's what FE has always been good at delivering, skills and skills training. So I think that the sector will rise to the demand of that Act. And will rise to meet the demands of that Act very successfully. I've got a little quotation at the bottom there. The passing of this bill is not an end, it is a beginning. That's from Stephen Evans, who's the Chief Exec of the Learning and Work Institute. I just thought that was a useful little quotation to describe the impact and significance of that Act. I can't stress enough how important the factors and the features of that Skills and Post-16 Education Act are. They really are going to shape the way FE works for the foreseeable future. So those three pieces of governmental activity really have set the agenda and set the policy agenda for further education and skills in the coming years. So let's look at what's come out of those things. First of all, a requirement for annual governance reviews, and that comes out of the white paper, that comes out of that DFE white paper at the top there, Skills for Jobs. The Skills for Jobs white paper said that all governing bodies should review their capacity, review their standing, and review their governance activity annually, if you like, as a self-assessment activity. And that's become kind of a routine expectation of governance in colleges. I think that's not an unhelpful thing. I think it's good for us all to reflect. Many colleges have been doing this anyway for a number of years as part of their self-assessment activity. It seems sensible that self-assessment covers governance and covers governance in some detail. Moving on to the spending review. The spending review is what drives Ofsted's spending and Ofsted's direction. As I said on the earlier slide, that was the spending review was articulated in November 21, and the spending review gave us funding to inspect all colleges and apprenticeships providers between 2022 and 2025. That's everyone, with the exception of a few academised particularised colleges, a very tiny number. But to all intents and purposes, all colleges and all apprenticeship providers will now be inspected between 2022 and 2025, regardless of previous grade. So all those outstanding colleges out there, all those outstanding apprenticeship providers, the good providers as well, will come into inspection in that 3-year window set by the spending review. We've been given funds, we've increased the number of HMI that we have and the number of Ofsted inspector colleagues so that we can accomplish this work, and we'll come to you at some point between 2022 and 2025. That's the first time that this has been done for a very long time. To give you a flavour of this, until this direction from the spending review, there had been colleges out there that may have not been inspected because they were outstanding since 2008. That meant that nobody was really sure of the status of the FE sector. Nobody was really sure of the respective quality of colleges across all corners and parts of the FE sector. So the spending review gives us the resource to come out and inspect everyone. And that by the year 2025 will give government, if you like, a new tally of where the sector is. It'll tell the government, tell the Cabinet Office, tell the Department for Education, Secretary of State, tell them what the status of the FE sector is. So everyone, no matter where you are, who you are, you'll see us between 2022 and 2025. If colleges are graded 3 or 4, then obviously they'll get a re-inspection as well during that period. So everyone will end up with a final grade between the years 2022 and 25. We've started that work clearly because we started it last September, and we're rocketing through. I'll talk more about that in a moment. We're rocketing through the colleges and the apprenticeship providers. It's a big task. There are a lot of you out there, and there are a lot of apprenticeship providers. To give you a sense of that, there are 230 odd colleges in the country. There are something around 1,250 apprenticeship providers. So the apprenticeship landscape is very, very large and very varied out there. But we will be coming to everyone across this 3-year period. Coming out of both the white paper and the Skills Act, the two pieces at the top and bottom of that previous slide, was a shift in and a review of technical and vocational qualifications. There's been rumbling around the sector for some time now, a review of qualifications, vocational and tech qualifications at level 3 and below. I'm sure many of you will know the initial proposals in that review caused some degree of consternation in the sector and some degree of pushback. There were representations from, I think it was 118 different professional bodies objecting to the fact that the initial review document proposed more or less the ending of BTEC qualifications. That's now gone back into a kind of rethink period. But that review process is still underway. It may take until 2025, 26, possibly even 2027 before the position of technical and vocational qualifications is finally established. But the desire of the government clearly is to elevate the new T-level qualifications and to remove BTECs and other technical and vocational qualifications from the landscape to leave the way clearer for the favoured T-level qualifications to take their place and to grow. So that's a kind of work ongoing across the next 3 to 4 years. The Skills Act, that's what the SA is at the end there, also established employer representative bodies, usually referred to as ERBs. These are bodies akin to chambers of commerce or LEPs. They're a kind of hybrid of those sorts of organizations, and they're meant to bring together employer voice in regions. Similarly, the Skills Act also established local skills improvement plans, generally known as LSIPs. And the two are very much linked. The LSIP is the product of work by ERBs and the product of work by folk like yourselves. Local skills improvement plans are meant to take the voice of employers and meant to take the voice of education providers, training providers, civic bodies, local authorities, LEPs, and provide a local skills improvement plan. That's a foundation of the Skills Act, the Skills and Post-16 Education Act. Very important kind of direction for the future, really. And the local skills improvement plan for an area will shape provision. It'll identify skills needs. It'll say what those needs are, what sectors they lie in, and what's going to be done to meet those needs. So there'll be a kind of two-stage thing. There'll be a review and a direction setting document, and they're going to be rehearsed and reviewed periodically to keep them up to date and make sure that they do reflect up-to-date skills needs. In terms of governance, the Skills Act also provided for a requirement for governing bodies of colleges to review skills provision and to collaborate with other providers. So if you're a governor in East Kent College Group or North Kent College or Mid Kent College or one of the Essex colleges, who I believe are with us today, you'll be, as a governor, responsible for reviewing your skills provision in the college and for talking to and working with other providers to make sure that that skills provision is relevant, is meeting needs, and is driving forward the skills capacity of your region. And you can see that there's a harmony between that governance work, the employer representative body, and the local skills improvement plans. All of those are focused on identifying skills needs and meeting skills needs in local areas. As a result of all of that, and as a result of the Skills Act, the bottom bullet describes our response. What we've done is enhanced our inspection activity for colleges, for general further education colleges, sixth form colleges, and specialist designated institutions. We've enhanced our inspection activity, and in addition to inspecting the education inspection framework, the EIF, that we've been doing since 2019, we've made an amendment and we've added to the EIF an additional judgment, a sub-judgment, where we make a judgment on the college's contribution to meeting skills needs. And that, as you can see from the stuff on the slide there, comes directly out of the direction and the requirement of the Skills Act. This means that when we visit a college between 2022 and 2025, we'll do the normal EIF inspection activity, but there'll also be usually 2 inspectors who are dedicated to looking at the way the college is contributing to meeting skills needs. those skills inspectors, as we call them, will talk to employers, talk to stakeholders, and stakeholders could mean other providers in the area, could mean the local authority, it could mean the LEP. It will mean the ERB when they're established, and it will involve a review of the LSIP for the area. Those inspectors will consider all of those things, and then we'll come to a judgment on how the college is actually contributing to that meeting of skills needs in the region. This is primarily a presentation to you folks out there who are governors. We'll talk to governors about this, and we'll, when we come out and do one of these enhanced inspections, we'll be asking you what your view is and what your participation is in supporting the college to meet skills needs in the locality and in the wider region. We recognise that some colleges meet a very local skills need, provide training and education and skills and knowledge for people to go into jobs in a very local sense in the local town or city. But we also recognise that some colleges have as it were, a wider coverage, wider footprint. So we'll ask about meeting regional skills need and even indeed meeting national skills needs. So our conversations with governors and with staff and with learners and leaders will be wide-ranging about the way the college meets skills needs, the way the college identifies skills needs and plans to deliver the right courses to meet those skills needs. And that will involve conversations with governors. We'll have the normal governance meetings where we'll talk to you about statutory duties for governors, things like safeguarding. We'll talk to you as normal about your oversight of quality and quality improvement, but we'll also talk to you about the way that you play a part in meeting skills needs, driving college into a position where it is able to identify and meet the skills needs of the locality and the region. And that'll be a significant part of inspections through to 2025. I'm sure that you are already engaged in that kind of work. As I said earlier on, I think it's the lifeblood of FE skills. You know, it's what we all do in further education. But inspectors will want to hear about that and actually will make a judgment about it. This is just a quick look at the impact of those Skills Act and the white paper. I said that coming out of initially the white paper, there's an expectation that governors will have an annual self-assessment. This is a little clip from the Education and Skills Agreements that the ESFA send out to colleges. So this is what, as it were, commissions the college to do its work each year. And you can see there that those two paragraphs at paragraph 5 of the agreement sum up and state that demand that governors will have an external review every 3 years, that those will need to accord with the governance codes, and that the department will want the outcomes of governance reviews. So that's your self-assessment governance review. Next slide just shows you also the provisions of the Skills and Post-16 Act, the Skills Act, and you can see there the small bullets, those sub-bullets. Governing body of an institution in England within the FE sector must from time to time review how well the educational training meets local needs and consider what the organisation does to meet those needs with other bodies around it. So it's a very direct expectation of governors in both the white paper and the Skills Act, and that shapes the activity that we do and will shape the activity that you do in the coming years. I can't stress how important this is. I go to a lot of meetings in the Department for Education and in other areas of government, other departments as well. Skills is always the top of the agenda, and the conversations are always focused on skills, identifying skills needs and meeting them. And I think it's a tribute to FE and its capacity that the government has recognised that it's FE which will drive this initiative, and that FE is the right place to upskill the nation's young people and adults. I think David Hughes from the Association of Colleges made a similar statement. He said that it was, absolutely encouraging that FE is seen as the place where the nation's skills needs will be identified and met. I totally agree with that, but it's a big agenda item, and it's driving everything that happens in FE across the next few years. So I said earlier on that we will be running enhanced inspections. We've been doing that since September of last year, September 2022. We started that roll through all the colleges with that little enhancement that looks at the way the college meets skills needs. Those inspections have been carried out right the way through the autumn term. So far, we've done 44 of the enhanced inspections. There's one that's happening today, and that comes to an end today. When that's over, that'll be the 44th enhanced inspection. You can see there that 39 of them have been in general FE colleges, 4 of them have been in sixth forms, and 1 has been in a specialist designated institution. Specialist designated institutions are, there are only about 8 or 9 of them in the country. They're adult education bodies, usually originally from community education sort of sector. Some of them are art colleges, very specialised bodies. There's only 8 or 9 of them in the sector, but they're part of the FE sector. You can see the bulk of it obviously is general further education activity. You'll know that colleges have come out of those inspections with the normal overall effectiveness grade that we give as part of the EIF, and we give the skills judgment, the sub-judgment for skills, which talks about the way that the college contributes to meeting skills needs and identifies and meets skills needs. The sub-judgment we arrive at is that either the college is making a limited contribution or a reasonable contribution or a strong contribution to identifying and meeting skills needs in the locality. It's one of those 3 judgments. We have 3 judgments because we wanted to avoid any connection with grading, the outstanding, good, RI, and inadequate grade structure, the 4 grades that we use in other areas. We wanted to make this sub-judgment a different thing. So we've only got the 3 sub-judgment terms. At the top, strong; in the middle, reasonable; and at the bottom, limited. Throughout those 44 enhanced inspections to date, all 3 sub-judgments have been used. So inspectors have said that a small number of colleges are making a limited contribution to identifying and meeting skills needs. The bulk of colleges are making a reasonable contribution, and a few are really stepping forward into the skills agenda and are making a strong contribution to identifying and meeting skills needs. A small number, I think it's only 2, have been judged to be limited, and again, that to me reflects the strength of our sector, the FE sector and reflects the fact that this stuff is what FE does well. Most colleges work well with their stakeholder groups, with their employers. They work well with other education providers. They work well with community organizations, civic bodies to identify skills needs and meet those. And our sub-judgments coming out of reports are tending to show that. The reasonable judgment, there's been a bit of comment about this across the sector. Some people don't like the word reasonable. They think reasonable doesn't sound very very encouraging, if you like. Don't think it sounds very positive. It's meant to be what it says. It's meant to recognize that if a college is doing reasonable work, what it can reasonably be expected to do, then it's doing the right thing. So a reasonable sub-judgment is exactly that. It's saying that you're doing what you can reasonably expect it to do to meet skills needs. And there's a small number of strongs, as I say. Reports from all of those 44 inspections are in progress. Obviously, the reports from any inspection take a little while to emerge after the inspections finish themselves. I think there are around 21 published. We publish on a Friday, so there's probably another batch today. That 21 figure might be slightly out of date by the time I finish speaking, but the reports are, as it were, tumbling out of our machine in Ofsted to sum up the skills judgments. In our inspection reports, we'll provide a short section that sums up the contribution that the college makes to meeting skills needs and the way that the college works with stakeholders and employers, other providers, education bodies to identify and meet skills needs. So it is actually a part of the text of the report now. That's reflecting that enhanced inspection activity. If you want to see some examples, then burrow into our reports from September and you'll find those skills sections in all of the reports for colleges published since September. You can search our website by date and you can find all the 44 inspection reports or however many have been published. And you can look at what that says, they say about the skill element of colleges' work. I'd suggest you do that if you're in a governance position, because that will give you some indication of the sorts of things that inspectors are focusing on and are asking about and are reporting on, and the sorts of things that help inspectors to arrive at their judgment about skills and skills contribution. So that's our work to date. The major policy drivers, the white paper, spending review, the Skills Act that's given us additional resource to do enhanced inspections, and that's placed a duty on you as governors to think about your role as governors and think about your role in encouraging and identifying and meeting skills needs. That's the current kind of state of play, and that's the current direction of our activity and your responsibilities as we stand today. I'm going to turn now to a little look kind of at what else is bubbling around, and then I'll shut up and give you a chance to ask some questions if you wish to. Just a quick reflection on some of the messages coming out of our skills inspections to date, our enhanced inspections. We found that most colleges have strong relationships with stakeholders, and obviously the stronger the relationships, the more likely a college is to reach that strong sub-judgment. But even the reasonable colleges, and indeed even the limited colleges, often had a good relationship with various stakeholders. Some colleges have very strong relationship with national stakeholders, you know, for instance, in engineering or technologies or IT or house building or construction, whatever it might be. And we've tried to reflect that in our reports. Most of the learners and apprentices have got up-to-date skills, knowledge, and are learning the right things for their jobs. That's something we focus on, because obviously if you're developing the skills in apprentices and learners, we want to check that those are the right skills. So we check that out with their employers, with the other stakeholders out there, to make sure that people are developing up-to-date and usable, relevant skills. Senior leaders have always been good at this in FE, using stakeholder contacts and as it were, bringing other stakeholders together, providing a focal point for stakeholder engagement and stakeholder conversations. In the best examples of enhanced inspections, we found that working incredibly well, where senior leaders and governors had become a kind of hub for stakeholder conversations about skills. And I'm sure that's what's happening in your region. At the bottom there, that's a fairly common recurrent weakness, if you like, that we've discovered on the enhanced inspections. While all of the things in those first 4 bullets were going on, where leaders and other folk, governors, were talking to stakeholders, that didn't always translate into the curriculum itself. So we found that in the limited colleges and in some of the reasonable colleges, teachers, trainers, curriculum managers didn't always engage with stakeholders at a curriculum level to make sure that teaching was relevant and current. So, you know, for instance, we didn't always find that, I'm just picking an example, you know, the course leader for engineering, motor vehicle engineering, didn't always contact local stakeholders who might be garage owners, who might be major car producers, major component producers, to check that the training that was going on in their curriculum was up to date and was relevant. In the best examples, what we found is that teachers and trainers and curriculum managers would invite stakeholders in to give guest speaking events, to run mock interviews, to talk about their work to learners and apprentices. But in many places that wasn't happening. So while there was, if you like, at the top level, lots of conversation with stakeholders, on the classroom floor, if you like, in the workshop, in the classroom, in the salon, those conversations with stakeholders weren't always happening. That's the piece that's needed to make the puzzle whole, and to make sure that everyone is at least reasonable and heading towards strong in our subjudgment. So there's just some of the headline findings from the 44 inspections to date. You will get these slides, you don't need to scribble this stuff down. Let's have a look at the future then. So apart from all the above that we've just been talking about, there are some other things bubbling around. A-levels, you know, a core provision in many colleges. These seem secure. Most of the conversations in and around government and the department identify A-levels as the phrase is often used, isn't it, the gold standard. It seems that the future of A-levels is secure, so it's likely that colleges will continue to run A-levels where they do run them. Not all colleges do. Apprenticeships are certainly in the spotlight, and apprenticeships are seen as a way of connecting to our skills needs and our skills future, building for our skills future. So apprenticeships are very much in the spotlight. I think it's generally known that You know, there's an under recruitment in apprenticeships. We're not always getting the right people into apprenticeships at the right levels. Some apprenticeships are not recruiting as well as was hoped. And also the achievement levels in apprenticeships are not all they should be. In some areas, they're very low indeed. They've been hit by the pandemic, and many sectors are still in that process of recovery from the pandemic. But apprenticeship outcomes are, in all senses, are not where they should be. So there's going to be a focus on apprenticeships across the next few years in terms of the quality and in terms of the outcomes for learners and apprentices. Subcontracting likewise. Subcontracting has often, not always, but often been a problem area in further education. I suppose to sum it up, what tends to happen is that colleges and providers don't have enough oversight of subcontracted provision. It's not a golden rule, but you know, if a provider has subcontracted provision, it's frequently the weak spot in their curriculum, because the oversight of subcontracted work is difficult, it's time consuming, it's costly. So there'll be a focus on subcontracting in coming years, particularly subcontracted apprenticeship work, to make sure that quality is building and quality is sustained. T-levels, as I said earlier on, these have featured in departmental and government thinking for the past really 4 or 5 years. They are the technical qualification for the future, and the thinking is that they'll sit alongside A-levels. So you'll have an academic route through A-levels and a technical vocational route through T-levels. They're big courses, they're very demanding. There's been quite a lot of government support for them and departmental support for them to get them going. And there's a transition program at level 2 that feeds into the level 3 T-levels. T-levels are at level 3. We haven't been inspecting them yet. What we've been doing is a review of their early implementation. So colleges are just, probably in your colleges, are just beginning to run these things. We've been reviewing the way they are being picked up and are being run. We did some visits last year. We're continuing that into this year as the second year of our review. We're going to look at some of the transition programs, the level 2 transition programs into T-levels, and see how many people go on to the transition programs, then into the T-levels. These aren't inspections. There's no formal feedback or report following a visit. What we do is provide the department, and we publish an overall review document. We did that at the end of last year. I think it was published in September or October after the first year of our visits, and we'll do a summary report summing up what we've seen across the 2 years. That'll probably come out in September of this year. But if you're having one of those T-level visits, it's not an inspection. It's just a survey visit to review the implementation of T-levels, and we'll make recommendations to government about the way that T-levels are rolling out across the country. If you're one of the colleges we're visiting, you should know by now that we're coming to do one of those survey review visits. I mentioned earlier on that there's a review of vocational qualifications generally. T-levels, as we've just been looking at, will dominate the future in vocational qualifications. And I think probably right up to 25, 26, 27, there'll be some churn and some movement in the technical vocational landscape before we know where things are and what qualifications are remaining alongside or with T-levels. There are other adult programs that have been launched and are moving into the sector. Skills boot camps which are generally kind of technical stroke IT stroke digital qualifications at level 3 to 5. We've done a survey of those, just like the T-level survey, and we're going to start inspecting those from April of this year. There's a program called Multiply, which is an adult numeracy program. You'll have all heard Rishi Sunak talking about the need to develop a new thinking on mathematics and numeracy and bring people's skills up to the age of 18. Well, Multiply is for those folks who are beyond the age of 18. There's no plan for us to inspect that yet, but we might again do a survey of the rollout of the Multiply program. It's generally, not in all cases, but generally being rolled out through local authorities, and is going to be a big program. And we've got a new HMCI coming at the end of this year. I'm being hurried up by Mark, so I'm going to stop sharing there.
Sincere apologies, Richard, and thank you very, very much for that. That was very, very an excellent recovery from the initial technical glitch. And consequently, we don't really have any time for Q&A. But what I would like to suggest is that if anyone does have Q&A, is that they feed those back to me through the direct chat, and then what I will do is obviously relay them to you so that we can at least put them the responses to those back through our post-conference material, if that's okay.
Very happy to do that, Mark, and I'm sorry, folks, for you out there that it was a wobbly start.
Appreciated. And looking at the slides you presented, you'd actually, unsurprisingly, perhaps preempted quite a lot of the questions that I was busy scribbling down myself. But if we do get further ones, I will relay those to you. So, huge thank you, and well, look forward to seeing you next year, hopefully.
Yeah, I'd love to come back. Thank you very much for having me, and I hope you have a fantastic day, everyone. It's a great event.
That's great. Thank you, Richard.
All the best.
For everybody else, if you wish to have more on inspection, we have Gemma Baker coming online in this hall, in the right-hand hall. She's the AoC Senior Policy Lead and leads on this particular topic. So please stay here. If you want to hear Vicky Liugier from ETF, because you're interested in things EdTech, head to the Central Hall. If you want to hear from Andrew Dow about the new professional standards for teachers and how they're being implemented, head to the Left Hall. I'm going to be returning to the Central Hall now, so I think one of my colleagues from Digital Leaders will be hosting in this right-hand hall as Gemma comes online. Be kind to Gemma, she's had terrible flu, so hopefully she can hold out for the whole session, and I will see you later.
You can just accept the invitation to the stage. Hi, Gemma.
Hi. For some reason, I've got a funny little football type thing.
So if you just, you should have a control panel, and the little arrow next to the camera, you should be able to select the camera that you actually want to use.
Okay.
Might ask you to refresh.
There we go. There we are. That's perfect.
Perfect. Great. So Emma, do you have slides to share?
I don't know. I don't normally share slides. So it's literally just me speaking. So that's fairly straightforward. I'm definitely in the right room, aren't I? Right hall. So that's all good.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay. Well, thanks. And I will hand over to Gemma. And Gemma will be back at the end to help if there are any questions.
Okay. Thank you, Lucy. Thank you. Okay, good morning, everyone. Apologies, I've had a chest infection, a sinus infection, so I'm sounding a bit croaky, but I'm here to talk to you about emerging themes from inspections since September 2022. Obviously, these are themes that I've collated from AoC members. I should introduce myself, really. So I'm Gemma Baker. I'm the Area Director for the Southeast region, so your region, and I'm also the Senior Policy Lead on Inspection and Ofsted at AoC. So yeah, as I say, what we're going to talk about today are emerging themes. They're not necessarily things that, if you were to be inspected, not necessarily the things that you will have in inspection, but there are some patterns and some similarities across these. So since since September, I have met with 77 different colleges across England. So far to date, we've had 44 inspections, obviously with the new enhanced skills inspection, which we'll come to a little bit later. I don't have all the answers, but if you do have questions for me and I don't know the answer, then I can go away and find out for you. So I believe there's a Q&A box and a chat box, so please put things in there and we'll keep an eye on it as we go through things. So I'm going to start with human resources. Human resources has been quite a key theme. Some HR directors have felt as though it's been like an audit. It's maybe an hour with your HR director or even half a day with your HR director. Inspectors have asked for training records, and that's quite normal. You know, your single central record, they'll look for that, have a good look at that. But they are tending to look at training records. Have you, as a college, responded to any CPD requests? Obviously, I know we've been back face-to-face since lockdown, but since then people have realised that they might have CPD requirements. And have you, as a college, responded to those? Policies and procedures, are your policies and procedures up to date? Not some old policy in a dusty drawer somewhere, making sure that that's nice and relevant to 2023. Some colleges have a skills matrix, some colleges don't. It's not, it's not a requirement, but if you do, making sure your skills matrix that feeds from your self-assessment report and your quality improvement plan, it all links in together. If some of you, well, with the Keeping Children Safe in Education guidance that changed last May, obviously online checks for new members of staff coming in. If you are doing that, then making sure that that's very much up to date. And your recruitment process is up to date as well. Not sort of, again, like your policies and procedures, they're not old and out of date. Appraisals. I mean, we all know it's hard to get line managers to get staff appraisals in on time and relevant to the member of staff, and making sure that appraisals are in ready if inspectors were to come in. Safeguarding training, and we'll come on to safeguarding in a bit, but making sure that all of your staff have up-to-date safeguarding training. I'm absolutely sure with CPD days and things you have covered that. But making sure that whatever the HR director says about safeguarding training, that the designated safeguarding lead also knows about it. And then the inspectors might triangulate with governors, they might triangulate with the senior leadership team, and also to your governance professional, your clerk as well, so that everybody is saying the same thing, that everyone has had safeguarding training. For governors, have they had an opportunity to have training or CPD for them, for the board? Any volunteers within the college, let's say perhaps invigilators, have they had the opportunity to receive CPD? Your business support staff, so your back office support staff, your MIS, your exams office, have they had the opportunity? And also, as we know, many colleges are now using agency staff and temporary staff. Have they also had the opportunity for training? So really, I think the key thing for your HR director is whatever your HR director says to an inspector, it is triangulated across all parts of the college and making sure everybody is on the same page. So if we move to safeguarding, obviously we know safeguarding is a limiting grade, and in some inspections since September, things have been going well, and inspectors have then found safeguarding concerns, and then that's when it goes quite horribly wrong, because inspectors will then obviously and rightfully start digging around looking for any other safeguarding situations. So your designated safeguard lead, your DSL, making sure that they have any incidents that have happened on college grounds, within the college, they have up-to-date records of those incidents. and that they link in also with the safeguarding governor. So the safeguarding governor doesn't need to know the nitty-gritty of the incidents, but they need to be aware. And if they were to be asked by the inspector about those incidents, they can actually converse fluently about what has happened, what has the college done, and what was the result of that. So it's all about impact. Care leavers and looked after children. These have been key areas where, if you do have them within your college, making sure that their safeguarding is absolutely tip top. They are, they're protected, and you know who they are, you know how they are looked after, you know their situation. Also, apprentices, whilst, our learners that come into the college, they have safeguarding training, making sure that your apprentices have definitely they know where to go if they have safeguarding issues, concerns, and normally an apprentice out in an employment workplace, they'll go to the employer. So making sure that the employer, the apprentice, they fully know what they need to do if there's a safeguarding concern. It's the responsibility of the employer or subcontractor knowing that what their safeguarding responsibilities are to your learners, because they are your learners under the name of your college. Also, 14 to 16-year-olds, if you do have any 14 to 16-year-olds, there's quite clear safeguarding responsibilities around those. So checking if you do have those learners, whether they're in a discrete part of the college, in a separate accommodation, but whether they come into the cafeteria at lunchtime and they're mixing with perhaps adult learners, making sure there's safeguarding responsibilities are there. And there are quite distinct requirements there. You may have heard lots of gossip on the grapevine about maps of the college. So inspectors like to meet with single gender groups, so male, female, non-binary, LGBTQ groups, where they give them a map of the college and they say, where do you feel safe? Where do you not feel safe? And that's brought up some issues, because every college has, areas that perhaps it's outside the smoking shed, or a dingy corridor, or a flickering light to the car park, making sure that learners do feel safe in all of these areas. And what have you as a college done to respond to those feelings of not feeling safe? It's a nice activity to do if you have the opportunity before inspection with your learners, to give them a floor plan, a map of the college, send them around the college, and they can sort of shade in with a pencil where they do or they do not feel safe. Gives you an idea of what you may need to respond to. Okay, so that's safeguarding. I am going to move to special educational needs and disability learners. So whether you have learners who are either in discrete provision or additional learning needs across all provision, making sure that your EHCPs, the learners' EHCPs, are completely up to date. We've had some outcomes from inspections where learners have not had their EHCPs updated for a very long time. And at that point, that raises concerns and red flags to the inspectors. So they start looking for if any EHCPs are not up to date with relevant outcomes for that learner now on the course they're on. Making sure SEND learners have opportunity of work experience. Is the provision ambitious enough for them? Is there stretch and challenge for those learners? Are there progression opportunities as well? We know some colleges have learners that enroll each year, cyclical, on the same course, and never seem to sort of progress further onto other things. So again, it's going back to that ambition for your learners and progressing them. I'm going to look at teaching, learning and assessment. So as we'd expect, most inspections have involved looking at English and Maths, ESOL, SEND, but those key themes for all learners, not just your 16 to 19-year-olds that come in, for your part-time learners, for your adults, for your apprentices. Have they all had the opportunity to develop their English and Maths and their ESOL skills? But also at induction, British values. Do they know? It's not about British values as much as it was before with 2018. It's about now, how do learners apply and contextualize British values to their current course? Whether they're a hairdressing student, can they apply British values to working in a salon or their future employability skills? So making it relevant to the learner. Prevent will always come up. It's very important. But can your learners express that local prevent issues, localism? What are the key concerns currently in your area, and are they aware of it, and do they know what to do if they are confronted with those prevent issues? Inspectors seem quite keen to hear about your relationship with external agencies such as the police, healthcare, social care, making sure you have evidence of those relationships. Work scrutiny. So there have been inspections where deep dives have gone as far down as looking at SPAG feedback on learner work. Have tutors provided feedback on learner work? Whether it's verbal or written, is there evidence of that? Stretch and challenge for all. So I mentioned about SEND learners, but for all learners, is there the opportunity to stretch and challenge? Behaviours, professional behaviours. So with lockdown, your learners that are coming through that were sort of 14 2 years ago, they're coming through and they've been online learning in their bedroom. Some of them do not have the professional behaviours that we would expect from our learners, such as coming to class on time, being respectful to the teachers and peers, turning up to exams on time. These are things that we've really recognised that learners are lacking. And what are you doing with induction? Can you develop those professional behaviours? Not only that, it's behaviours such as in a recent inspection, learners at lunchtime were playing music on their phones, which what young learners do. Learners were swearing loudly, and none of these behaviours were addressed by members of staff. There were no members of staff available to address those behaviours. We know that's what young people do. We know they play music, they swear, that's what they do. But if you do get inspectors in when you have your inspection, making sure you have a member of staff just going around, just addressing any sort of poor behaviours, because it can actually send the inspection in another way, whether the college is actually responding to these poor levels of behaviour. The 40 extra guided learning hours that we had, was it last year or the year before, making sure that you can evidence what you did with those 40 extra GLH, whether it was enrichment, employability skills, English and Maths, anything you did, enrichment, making sure that you can evidence what you did with those extra 40 GLH. Making sure that your learners' ILPs, the individual learning plans, and their targets are up to date and relevant. Have they achieved? Are they still on the journey to achieving them? And also the quality of target setting, and the quality of the reviews. Obviously, all learners get IOG as they come into the college, but making sure that the learners know their IOG and what's their next steps. So that links into their ILPs. What's my next step? What am I next to achieve on my course? Work experience. We all know that's incredibly challenging for colleges, for learners to get work experience, and work experience for everyone. Is there an opportunity for everybody to gain employability skills? Enrichment. Do your learners receive enrichment? Is there additionality to their course? Is there personal development for everyone? Is there the opportunity for confidence building? We know there's an awful lot of, poor mental health among our learners. Is there an opportunity for them to build their confidence and develop themselves now that we're coming out of lockdown? I think the last thing about teaching learner assessment is how ambitious is the college curriculum? And it goes back to stretch and challenge and progression and achievement. How ambitious is your curriculum for your learners? Okay, so enhanced skills inspection. Obviously, this was new for September last year. So really, it starts at the beginning on day one of the inspection where, well, actually, no, let's rewind. It starts the week before when you get the call on the Monday morning. So you'll have 2 nominees. You'll have your skills nominee and also, I'll say, normal inspection nominee. But your skills nominee will have to arrange approximately 15 to 40, depending on the size of your college, 15 to 40 stakeholder meetings for the following inspection week. The stakeholder groups, there are 4. So community, civic, education, and employment. So those 4 key areas with your stakeholders, you'll need to have meetings arranged. So Ofsted will provide you with a timetable where you can slot in appointments, normally around 30 to 45 minutes long. What's really useful is if your skills nominee can provide to the inspection team a small bio, a paragraph about who the inspector is about to meet. So they're about to meet Joe Bloggs from Joe Bloggs Garage. They know exactly what they are. So there's time saved from introductions and things like that. Your principal should not be the skills nominee. That's Ofsted have really advised that the principal should not be a nominee for any part of the inspection. Normally, depending on the size of your college, again, there'll be either 1, 2, or 3 skills inspectors who will come in, and they'll normally spend, excuse me, day 1, day 2, and maybe a bit of day 3, interviewing your stakeholders. We know there's no weighting against the final judgment from inspection with the enhanced skills inspection element, but it is key to the leadership and management and the quality of education. Whatever your principal says in their introductory presentation to the inspection team, he or she will only have 15 minutes to present, but whatever they say at that inspection, introduction to the inspection team, the golden threads of whatever they say must feed down into the college. So your principal will say, or chief executive will say, this is the intent of the college. So everybody needs to understand that. So what we recommend, or what I would recommend, is that all your staff have a skills statement, just a briefing sheet. Your governors as well have a briefing sheet of exactly what your principal is going to say. So if an inspector would stop you in the corridor and say, have a chat with you about the college, where's it going, what's the intent, what's the direction of travel for the college, making sure everybody knows exactly what they're saying. It's also quite important, those stakeholders, the 4 different categories of stakeholders, we've heard that some stakeholders come to those interviews and they're a little bit clueless. So again, brief in your stakeholders. They need to know what they're doing, why they're doing it, instead of just going, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, why am I here? So making sure that they're fully briefed prior to those interviews. Do employers feed into the curriculum design? So with vocational areas, yes, I'm sure they do in one form or another, but some inspections, if you have more academic subjects such as A-level maths, let's say, some inspections have been asking how local employers or local stakeholders have fed into a curriculum design of something that's not vocational, which is always quite difficult if it's a sixth form. But making sure that you do have some evidence where you do work with your stakeholders to develop your curriculum. And finally, obviously, we know that the 3 gradings is limited, reasonable, and strong. Most colleges so far are getting reasonable, which is it's good. It's something to be proud of. There's probably around 10 have got strong so far, and around 3 or 4 have got limited. So it's not something, if you get a strong or a reasonable, it's something to be really proud of. But there is a little bit of people at the moment thinking, being strong is a bit of a badge of honor. And of course, everybody wants strong. That's, it's a big sign to your stakeholders that you are a strong college with strong skills elements. But, having a strong or a reasonable is very good. I'm trying to think what else there is. So apprenticeships. So commitment statements with your apprentices, making sure that they're in place and they're up to date. Some inspection teams have been asking about apprenticeship enrolment data, and we'll come to data in a little bit. So making sure that you have your apprenticeship enrolment data together if you're asked for it. You may not be asked for it, of course. If you have any subcontractors, making sure your quality assurance procedures are in place. We know that it can be difficult if you subcontract to a company that's perhaps not in your local area, and making sure that you do have those quality assurance procedures in place and you do check. Do apprentices receive the same induction as, let's say, your 16 to 19-year-olds? Whether it's, do they have an induction on British values, prevent? Do they receive information, advice and guidance? Do they know if they're retaking their English and maths? Do they know when they're doing that? Do they know what they're supposed to be doing? And also, do they receive tutorials? Do they know what their targets are? Do they know their progress? Do they meet with their tutor, assessor regularly enough? You probably use an online portfolio where it sort of tracks progression. Do they have access to that? Are they accessing that? So are they aware of their achievement? And inspectors have gone out to meet with apprentices and asked them, oh, can you demonstrate your achievement? So whether you can fix a part of a car engine or something, can you demonstrate how you've achieved that? So making sure that your apprentices are fully aware, if you do get the call, that they may come out and be inspected as well and be asked these questions. And one last thing about apprentices is you probably do have a database within the college. Does it link your apprentices with your employer? So, apprentice A is linked with employer A. You are fully aware of where your apprentices are and who they're with and what they're doing, because that has been a bit of an issue where colleges cannot explain where some of their learners are. their apprentices are. So let's talk about data. So your MIS manager, or I mean, as AoC member colleges, you will have access to something called RCU MIDAS benchmark data. So your MIS manager should have access to that. If not, you can ask me or someone within AoC and we can provide that to you. So that just gives you an idea of retention, achievement, and it's benchmarked against all the colleges within England, well, within AoC membership. It's always very handy. We know data is really seriously wonky from the COVID years. It's all a bit all over the place, but it's always very handy to have internal and supplementary data if you're asked for it. The lead inspector before inspection may well ask for data to help his or her planning. Don't be afraid to provide it to them. They're there to plan and see the areas of the college that you want them to see. Ofsted are also looking at apprenticeship enrolment data. I think I mentioned that before. Whether that's a piece of comparative research, whether it's due to how many apprentices are actually enrolled, how many apprentices you have enrolled compared to some people, the cost of living crisis, are people going out to work rather than enrolling on apprenticeship courses? It's always handy to have any internal supplementary data, in your back pocket, just in case, a judgment's being made and you want to have evidence to say, well, actually, no, I disagree or I agree. It's always good to have in your back pocket to talk to the inspection team about. In terms of governance, I think Richard did a presentation an hour before me, but governors is quite a key thing. Of course it is. They're the governing body. Do your governors constructively challenge your senior leadership team? Is there evidence of that, perhaps with your governance professional, your clerk? Do they have evidence in board minutes where it can be highlighted that the board has challenged the senior leadership team and they have done something as a result? So the impact, have they responded? Are your governors involved in the self-assessment report? Are they involved in the quality improvement plan? Do they know the college intent? Do they know the direction of travel for the college? There's also quite a focus on the strategic angle and skills of the board. So perhaps, well, let's talk about diversity of the board. So that comes in two forms, really. The equity, diversity, inclusivity of the board. Are they reflective of your community? And we know it's very difficult to recruit governors, but trying to make them as diverse as possible is always very good. But also their skills diversity. So as a college, perhaps you might want to develop your IT curriculum. Do you have someone on the board that is from the IT sector that can advise and guide you as a college going forward? And as I say, do they know the college intent? That is so key. And I think there's no Q&A, there's no questions. So I think that's almost it. I think for the nominees, it's very key that you are on board with the inspector. Don't try to block or hide anything. Be upfront and honest. That's the best thing at inspection. Just put your cards on the table. And I think the last thing I would say is there are quite a lot of new Ofsted inspectors, quite a lot of new His Majesty's inspectors now. And there was a large recruitment drive last summer. So, just and also there are some still quite experienced inspectors from the old SIF days as well. So, you know, just keeping that in mind, that there are some new people and there's also some very experienced people, but still perhaps not thinking as up to date as the EIF. So I think that's about it. I don't know if Lucy, if you're there, if there are any questions from anybody.
I can't see any questions.
No, I can't.
So if you have a question, please enter that now, or otherwise we can head back to the room.
Okay, well, I hope that was useful. If you get the call, AoC are here to help.
Lots of nice comments in the chat.
Yeah. If you have any questions, if you go home this evening and think, oh, I should have asked that, then please do, you know, get in touch with Mark or myself and we can help. But it's half term, I believe, is it, in for Kent next week? So fingers crossed Ofsted will have a bit of a break too.
Amazing. Great.
Thanks,
Thanks, Gemma.
Thanks, everyone. Take care. Have a good half term.